Are you interested in media coverage with over 80,000 podcast playbacks per month, along with automated outreach to thousands of customized targets to grow your revenue more efficiently? With over $8 billion in new sales pipeline growth delivered to our partners so far, we can help. Please reach out for more information. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Supply Chain Innovators, I guess. Yeah, Supply Chain Innovators. I'm Mike Vincent. He's Bart A. Muynck. Did it always say Bart A. Muynck, or did you change that?
I changed it. Do you know why, Michael?
I don't have any clue. I have no clue.
In the US, if you have a middle initial, people think you're smarter.
Really?
Yeah, so I added that. So people would think
I always went with
smarter.
Michael W. Vincent, but nobody thinks I'm smart.
Yeah, no,
That's 'cause
it's
they met
something
me.
that I read up on. And so I thought, why, instead of just being Bart, and my full name is actually Bart Adrian Peter Jan de Muynck. So in Belgium, you get three middle names, no middle initial, three middle names. And it came back from when you were born. You would have your three best friends be the witnesses when you would go to the town hall to register your baby.
Oh, really? And so those were the three middle names, were your three best friends that
Yeah,
came
so
with
my
you?
dad's three best friends.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's not like a family thing.
No,
It's
no,
no
no.
kidding.
No, my kids is different though, because my son, his middle name is my father-in-law, and then on my daughter's side, it's my mom. So
So you get some Belgian culture here,
a little
some
bit.
history. We
Well, no, I
understand.
wouldn't say it's culture, just the old way of doing things versus the new way of doing things.
Most people think old means culture, right? Just if you did it, I don't know, or
Yeah,
tradition.
sometimes I would say it's old culture, new culture, and
Yeah.
some things old cultures are good. Like you said, we're innovators, so for us, a lot of times the newer stuff is better.
So do I introduce you as a rock and roll wino or rock and roll wine connoisseur or industry expert thought leader in logistics, or what are you doing these days, Bart?
Yeah, I do a lot of fun stuff. Most of
You do a lot of fun stuff,
but
brother.
as you know, we also need to pay the bills, right? So,
Yeah, that's the part that sucks, right?
I will say, besides family and the dogs and everything, right? Because that's obviously everyone's first passion. You can't deny that. But my passion really is supply chain. Even if people wouldn't pay me, don't get any ideas now. But I still need to make the money. But I love what I do. I wouldn't want to do anything else. But I do have a big passion for music. I no longer play music, but I listen to a lot of music, travel the world for concerts. And then I'm also a big wine and food aficionado. For anyone that's ever seen me, that's why I'm not the skinniest of people, because I love to eat and I love wine. Just came back from the wine country. And even in my supply chain world, I work with both companies that manufacture wine. Constellation Brands is one of them. They were a client of ours at Project 44. They still are. And on the other hand, if you look, some of my customers, we do a lot of dinners with prospects, with clients, and then I'm the supply chain expert, but also the wine expert on hand. So I find ways of combining both of my passions at work.
All right. Well, I've never known anybody to not be able to combine alcohol with logistics.
That is true. But on the trucking side, it's different than on the shipper side.
It
That's
is,
why you go to these conferences as well. Shipper conference at 11 o'clock, everyone's in bed. If you go to like a TIA conference or Freight Waves, if you're leaving the bar at 2 a.m, you're the first one to leave.
You're the first one to leave. And when you talk about shippers, I was thinking immediately what hit me was Break Bulk conference down in Houston. What I found was interesting was the actual shipping companies, maritime. Every day by 9 o'clock in the morning, there was beer and there was Bloody Marys being served at the booths. There's alcohol all day long at those. I mean, they got trucking beat.
Yeah.
They
True.
definitely
Yeah. They know
do.
how to do it.
Yeah, they absolutely do. So what's going down? I mean, beside that, I mean, it's a shame you don't play those. Is that a Gibson ES 335 you have?
Yeah, that's a Gibson. Yeah.
Bro, that is a sweet guitar sitting
Yeah.
right there.
I
I'm
mean,
very
I think
jealous.
they're beautiful pieces of art. Art's another
They
passion of
are.
mine. I love looking at art, but I think a lot of these instruments are pieces of art. And I mean, if nothing else, every morning when I'm not traveling and I walk into my office, these guitars just put a big smile on my face. And
Yeah.
probably you have the same when people see you and they see the background. It's always a great conversation starter. There's
Oh,
actually
sure.
a lot of musicians in our industry, right? A lot
I,
of people
there
play
are
guitar or drums.
surprisingly a lot. Surprisingly, there are very, very many. There are. There
Yeah.
really are.
And
There really
it's
are.
gotten to the point where, let's say I'm traveling, I go on a webinar, on a call, video call, and they're not behind me, and people are getting worried. It's like, Bart, what happened to the guitars? It's like, well,
Where
I'm
are
not
they?
home, you know?
Where are they? They don't travel with you. Yeah,
No.
it's talking about musicians. I was just talking to Lance Healy this morning. He says hi to you, by the way.
Yes.
Fantastic blues harp player.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Very good. Yeah, I saw
And
him
drummer.
play not too long ago. I think it was at CSCMP Edge. We had a little event there from one of the vendors,
Yeah.
and we had Steve Winwood's daughter who was playing music.
No
And
way.
guess what? He joined them and played a little harp, and it was pretty darn sweet.
Yeah. No, he's fantastic, and he is. Uh, I've never known him to be without it. It's right there in his
Yeah.
pocket. He's like, "Oh, you mean this?"
Another
He's
good
got.
buddy, Will Haraway. Do you know him from Lead Coverage?
I don't know Will Haraway. No.
Will's a great guitar player. He has a band that does original songs, but also they're a great Tom Petty cover band.
Oh,
Shout
fantastic.
out to Will. Yeah, a lot of great musicians.
There you
I
go,
wouldn't call
Will.
myself a great musician, but I'm a great lover of good music.
There you go. And fantastic guitars. I love them. I love them. So what's going on? I mean, you're advising, and you're in so many different avenues, I guess, of logistics right now, right? And there's a ton of stuff going on. Most of it conjecture right now, right? Most people are trying to prognosticate and figure out what is going on, and right now it's pretty difficult with tariffs, not tariffs. They're caving, they're not caving, and nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. It's a negotiation tactics that are going on right now, and I would think that you're probably advising people to chill for a second here. Let's try and figure out what's going on here before we do any silly knee jerk reactions. But what's going on right now? What do you see in your space in logistics that's of interest right now?
Yeah, you're making a good point. There's quite a lot of different things happening. I think if you look at it from the technology side of things, the last 2 years were a little bit on the lower end where people weren't buying as much, or they were kind of putting off their investment in
Yeah,
technology. It was hard times for technology vendors. Same for logistics people, right? I mean, with low rates, etc. We do see the economy starting to come back. There's more, I'd say, confidence into the market. We're also seeing that from the VC side, more investment. We just recently seen a couple of acquisitions and major investments being made. So it's looking like 2025. It's not going to be a huge change from last year, but at least we see positive impacts. But it's like you said, there's a lot of unknowns, right? I mean, when I started overall in supply chain, the world of supply chain was very simple compared to now. The supply chains weren't quite as global. You didn't have quite as many of these impacts. You didn't have like thousands of suppliers from all over the world, things like that. So nowadays, people know there's so much uncertainty, complexity, weather events. And so when they're looking at, for example, technology, they know they need technology that gives them a lot more agility in the sense that how do we adjust, kind of on the dime, almost change the way we do things, and we can adjust. That was something we never had with these older pieces of technology. You wanted to put one new thing in, it took a year to upgrade. Now you're seeing these platforms where it allows you to kind of very quickly adjust to that. And so, yes, we don't know what's going to happen with all the tariffs and how much of what Trump said he was going to do is actually going to happen. But you can prepare for that. You can run scenarios around it. And the good thing is, we now have technology that also aided with artificial intelligence helps you to react a lot quicker than we ever have been able to do so before.
you're talking about digital twins, like having a digital twin of your supply chain and running through different types of scenarios to try and plan for the
You
future.
can
That
call
type of.
whatever you want, digital twin, modeling, but
Yeah,
yes, you can actually in an environment simulate what is going to happen or what could happen based on real actual data, but then really play scenarios just like the military always does, right? When they do these war games,
yeah,
they're
right.
actually preparing for war. There is no war, but they're preparing for war and they're going through all these scenarios. Supply chains are at war with all the disruptions that are going on. it's huge impacts. You can actually play out all those scenarios in that technology using real data, and that helps you to better prepare for whatever might come.
Yeah, I would think that those are now becoming a lot more predictive in nature as well. Like you and I don't have to sit around and go, what if this or what if that, right? By utilizing AI and looking at the different geopolitical signals, et cetera, that are out there, there's risk factors also. Like here's your most likely scenario, right? Or here's
You
the
are correct, right? But I think the thing is there's such strange and crazy things that happen that you can't always model everything. Like
yeah, agreed.
who would have thought that last year would happen, like at the port of Baltimore, that would have ever happened?
Oh yeah, right. These black swan, just total. You wake up and go, "Holy cow! The bridge is gone." Yeah,
Exactly. But the fact is that if you have an over reliance on one specific port, like automotive industry has and several other industries, then you have a risk point. So first, it's how do I identify the risk? And so yes, if that's like 90% of where your volume comes in, that's high risk. And then you say, what if something happens? We don't know it's going to be the bridge that collapsed, but what if something happens that we can't use that access port? How do we remodel our network to have the least amount of impact? I think that's what we're looking for, because a lot of things like weather related things, like we couldn't have predicted some of the snowstorms that even hit us here in Texas or the fires in LA. You can't predict that, but you can say, what if something happens that in a way impacts a certain region? What are the alternatives that we can do so we can fairly quickly change over and go to that, plan B, plan C, etc.
yeah. Looking at your supply chain is like early on, discovering the fact that a customer that has 60% of your business isn't actually a good idea, right? I mean, you have to have diversity in your customer base and your vendor base and your supply chain as well, right? Because when you look at it, the transparency and the understanding of what's going on to be able to do this modeling is fantastic. I mean, it's getting better and better and better, your visibility into your supply chain. But if you have no alternatives, you can model all day long. The same outcome is you're done,
Yeah,
right? Unless
correct.
you have that. So how do you have any insight on how or how companies build that? Because I would imagine that a lot look at their modeling and go, holy crap, we don't have very many alternatives. We got to figure this out, right? I mean, that's the idea, is to look at it and go, okay, we've got great plan A, B, C, and D, right? And some look at it and go, there is no plan B. We have to figure that out. How do you do that? Because you can't have 15 different vendors of the exact same
Yeah, you're
materials.
correct. And in certain instances, there are no other options. We saw that during COVID, right? When all of a
Yeah,
sudden factories closed or things happened, that there is no plan B, right? It's like, okay, there is none. And that's why we saw certain products, like if you tried to order a freezer, right, in the start of COVID, there wasn't any for 6 months because everything
yeah,
was manufactured, let's say in China, and there was no product coming over because the locations that manufactured were closed. The ships and all the transportation was being impacted as well. I think what's happening now, and then again, it's not like you can predict everything. It's not like you can have a plan D or whatever for everything, but it's being aware of the risk in your organization. I think awareness creates a lot more understanding of, hey, we are at risk, and then what can we do? And that's the other part where we saw at COVID that actually showed like some supply chains how resilient they were, and they said, hey, if we can't manufacture X, we can switch over and manufacture something else that people now need. They're
yeah.
not
Oh, yeah.
buying clothes, but we know people need masks and protective gear. So let's switch over to that. So again, it's a little bit like, hey, it's not just the strongest that survive; it's the creatures that adapt the fastest. And I
The
think there's a
most
lot of
nimble. Yeah,
thinking. Yeah, there's a lot of thinking going on, and obviously a lot of the big companies, they're getting advice from large consulting companies, from premier tech companies, from pretty much learning from other industries. And I think that's quite a bit changed from what we saw decades ago, where processes were quite rigid. People were not thinking outside the box. They were just very much industry focused. I think our thinking has changed, and I think it's going to continue to change. And then obviously now, because we have a lot of that new technology, the talent that we also have in these organizations are quite different. They
mm.
think differently than some of the older folks, and I would count ourselves into that, how we would
Yeah,
think. If you
sure.
talk to a 25-year-old in supply chain, they completely think differently than a 50-year-old or a 65-year-old person.
And certainly, I think completely differently than I did 30 years ago when I started getting into it. 30 plus. I mean, you have to. There's so much more technology, et cetera. That's when we look at the impacts on the supply chains that are happening right now, and as they progress in time, it seems now that your intelligence has to be more and more in tune um, with everything that's going on in society. It's not just like, within the supply chain, like here's a supplier, there's a supplier, you got this cost, you got these efficiencies, here's how you have to move these particular vendors because of their geographic location in the world or because of the type of material it is. Is it bulk? Is it out of gauge? That type of stuff, right? All those traditional, I would say, first level impactors for supply chain creation and decision making, right? But now you've got stuff that is going on right now, large impacts in supply chain that are being caused by things that have nothing to do with logistics.
Oh, absolutely correct, right?
Right? I mean, so how do you manage that type of stuff now? I mean, you've got to have a way to be just the finger on the pulse of everything that's going on as far as gangs in the streets, fentanyl, all this type of stuff impact your supply chains in a major way now.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, in logistics specifically, we see a lot of issues with that, with the cartels, with theft of cargo, and issues around the movement and the transportation of product. Or let's say you got a whole truckload of a product coming in, and there is like drugs in there, and it get held up, and who knows how long it's going to be until they release your product. But on the other hand, a lot of it is also consumer driven. So if you're a brand that eventually sells to consumers. And to be honest, everyone's become a retailer, pretty much with a few exceptions. Every manufacturer sells directly to the consumer, where it's personalized product or regular product. I worked for PepsiCo for 10 years. We didn't sell to consumers, but now you can go on Frito-Lay.com and whatever and buy products directly from them. So when you're consumer driven and you're that close to the consumer anyway, social media plays a big impact. That one phenomenal, let's say, post from a Kardashian, just to take an example, on social media can increase or decrease the demand for a product like 100-fold,
Well, I
right?
mean, the whole Bud Light fiasco has got to be studied in business and marketing schools like crazy right now because that was just an instant death, right?
It is. It's one of those things where it is an example of a company trying to do good, but not understanding necessarily who the customer base was, and not necessarily relating doing good to, oh, this is my very conservative customer base.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not knowing who the Chevy Nova was another
Yeah.
incredibly
Where, for
famous.
example, if you are in clothing and apparel, then you need to message that to a much broader audience rather than just continuing to have kind of the models that are perfectly aligned to certain people's specification model your clothes. That's no longer cool. But in other products, we're still very, very conservative. And so how do you know your customer? And how do you, for example, with consumers preferences continue to change, their expectations are continuing to change. It's very difficult to continue to understand. That's why obviously there's so many people on social media. There's a lot of studies that go on behind the scenes of that data that then get thrown in and kind of used for product development, marketing, etc.
Yeah, yeah. Before we started here, you teased me and said you had a really interesting story for me.
Yeah, one of the stories
Eh,
is, as I mentioned right before, it's like I like to kind of combine things that I'm passionate about and see how I can combine supply chain and wine, supply chain and music. But
yeah,
here's a good story to tell. It's when I first started as being an independent advisory with my Bart A LLC. This was August of 2023, and I just written an article that got published on Forbes.com. And literally on a Thursday, I think it was 2 p.m., that first article got published. And I thought, I didn't think too much about it. I thought Forbes has incredible readership. I don't know if it's going to really help me with my business. It's not going to hurt either, right? It's just one avenue to voice kind of your expertise. Within 2 hours, I get an email, but it was a little bit of a different email because it came from a production assistant from a movie.
Yeah.
And so I'll keep it fairly short, but I ended up talking to the director of the movie. Director of the movie said, "Hey, Bart, me and Nicole read your article. We're researching AI because we're doing this movie, romantic thriller, but the backdrop is the CEO or the main character is the CEO of this AI technology company. And
Ah.
so there's a writer strike. So we're researching it. We came across your article. We didn't understand AI, but we read your article. Now we understand it. Fast forward, December, the movie comes out, and still not 100% sure what the movie is. But I do see that Nicole Kidman, is nominated for a Golden Globe for a movie called Baby Girl. Well, guess what? She's the CEO of an AI company who does logistics robotics.
There you go.
So I'm like, okay, wow, I've got to watch this movie. Well, I never got the chance to go to the movie theater to see it, but I think last week it was for rent or for sale on the on Apple TV. So I bought the movie, started watching it, and I go like, wow, this all not the story itself, but the backdrop is so recognizable. So much so that one of the companies I had recommended to them to talk to was a logistics robotics company that does the sorting, these products that fast moving robots, ASRS robots, auto store robotics, right? And then I watched the movie and I say, I wonder. And so I watched the movie, watched all the credits, and at the end of the credits, it said the director wishes to thank, and it was all the family, and then special thanks to, and I see my name appear.
Get
And I
out of
thought
here.
for someone
Look at
that's
you.
in supply chain who thinks our world is so niche, and only supply chain and logistics people will write what I write, to then kind of say, hey, this has some kind of usage in the movie world, and I'm also an avid movie watcher, and to see that is just something very heartwarming. But the cool thing about it, and it's not just, and there's probably other incidents of that as well, but it also shows that supply chain now is in Hollywood movies, right? Which is quite different from what you would have expected 20, 30 years ago, right? Where no one would be talking about supply chain.
Yeah, no, it's boring. Well, yeah, I mean, there was Convoy back in the day. I guess it
Yes,
was kind of
I
supply
still,
chain. I guess I
I
don't know.
still love that. I love that Chris Christopherson song as well. Uh,
Yeah,
Rubber Ducky,
yeah, the rubber, yeah, rubber ducky, and
Rubber Ducky, and then yeah, 30 years later, 20 years later, whatever it was, there was a company with that name. Remember that?
yeah. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. So, what are you most excited about moving into this year? I mean, you're working with a bunch of clients and stuff like that.
Yeah,
What's your excitement level? What are you looking
I'll
for?
say what I really
Everybody's
excited about
interested in anything. Yeah, what gets Bart
personally
going? Wow.
in my business, and then secondly for the industry. I do see kind of a more positive outlook for this year than I've seen the last 2 to 3 years. So that's really good. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm. There's more investment coming back into the industry. There's some exits going to happen. We see end users that have maybe said not no, but not now in the past. They're now saying, hey, we need to, because of all the complexities, all disruptions, we need to invest in these new technologies. So I think that's really what I'm looking forward to for the industry as a whole. And hopefully, especially for the truckers, we see rates going up. It's not going to go up tremendously, but it's also not going to go down. So we can't see more capacity leaving the industry because of bankruptcies, etc. Now, I think on a more personal level, what I'm really excited about is there's a lot of new technology coming in, but also because of things like AI, there's a lot of maybe misperceptions. There's a lot of
Mm, mm.
mistrust. There's a lot of unknowns out
A
there.
lot of hype
So
out there on some things. Yeah,
yes. I
yeah.
think for people like you and me that have been in the industry for a while, we also see it as kind of part of our responsibility also to further educate the market. So I'm very kind of eager to look forward to this year to also continue to myself research, but then really say, what is it that AI can help in our industry? What is real? What isn't real? How do you focus on? And really help people. And I think as an industry that has to be more collaborative, right? I think we all have a task to help each other, That's why I like talking to people, like going to conferences, things like that. But I'm really looking forward to what this year has to offer overall. And then, like I said, just creating more education and awareness of what's out there and how people can use it.
Fantastic stuff. Fantastic. Uh, Bart, do you look for people to inbound and say, hey, Bart A. de Muynck, I need your help? And if so, who should be reaching out to you and where?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best salesperson for myself, and I'm very lucky in that way. To be honest, that most of my business either comes from people approaching me or people that refer me. But yeah, I'm always excited to work with companies that are pretty exciting that need help. But yeah, go on my website. It's bartamung.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, or probably at one of the upcoming conference. I'll be at Manifest this coming week. I think a lot of the people in the industry will be there in Vegas. I'll be at RELA, which is the retail conference, the week after that. Or they can probably go on your website or through you
Yeah,
and find me as
absolutely.
well.
Yeah, they absolutely can. I'll tell you this though: there's very few people that I've ever talked to in logistics that say, "No, I don't know who Bart is." Very few people that have to
They
say.
still exist.
They,
They still
I
exist.
I don't know where they're at, but I haven't found them. But it's been fantastic. But I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this. Someday I'll be in Texas. I'm going to knock on your door and I'm going to play with all your guitars. So
Oh, definitely. I invite you to do so. I'm pretty sure we'll see each other at an event coming up, or like
yeah,
we
we
did a
certainly
few
will.
years back, be on a panel together. Hopefully, talking about something like sustainability, right? That was
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely. Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely. I love it. I thank you so much, my friend. I thank everybody else. Thank you for downloading and watching SCI. Until next time, peace and love, everybody.